No, it isn't a Tuesday. It isn't a Thursday, but this is Knockouts and Three Counts coming at you with a Monday night edition as we have the return of our guy Mitch Mckee before he goes to war in the LFA main event this Friday on UFC Fight Pass. But before we get to that, you already know the deal. I got to tell you about our homies over at Potter's Tree Service. If you're in the need for tree trimming, walnut logging, lot clearing, storm damage cleanup, anything to do with tree removal, tree chipping, all that stuff, Potter's Tree Service is the way to go. You don't need Hacksaw Jim Duggan to come get you with the 2x4. Just hit up Asa and Potter's Tree Service. Let them know that Knockouts and Three Counts sent you. Use the links in the bio and enjoy the show. As you can see, there's all the numbers. Enjoy it. We'll talk at you soon.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Rock, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and Three Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and Three Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and Three Counts starts now.
What up, though? It is a Monday. This is Knockouts and Three Counts, and it's multiple fight weeks, man. You got the BKFC going down this weekend. You got Big John's going down this weekend. And more importantly, what we're here to talk about today, we got the return of our guy, Mitch Mckee, this Friday for LFA. So first of all, thanks for the time, man, and joining the show again.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure coming on your guys' show.
Appreciate that, man. It's always good to hear people don't think we bored them to death. Corey, J-Bone, how the fuck are you?
You know, man. You know. Go ahead, Corey. How are you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Trying to get the girls ready for their soccer season. We just had to put the nets away about a half hour ago, trying to get their passing down a little bit unsuccessfully, but we're trying. We're working at it. And that being said, season got postponed a week, so extra time for them to work on their game. That's all. That's how I'm looking at it.
There you go.
Corey, we know your big gumpy ass ain't playing soccer.
Oh, I'm out. What do you mean? I'm out.
Corey, you out there kicking the ball around?
Oh fuck yeah. I ain't that big. I'm still athletic enough.
He said I ain't that big. Look, I'm still athletic.
I get a win walking to the mailbox. I can't imagine being out there kicking goals and shit.
No, believe it or not, I can still move these feet for a big man. I can still move these feet, but no,
I ain't mad at you, sir.
I was out there kicking the ball with them, having a good time. I can't kick for shit, but I was out there practicing. That's for sure.
Hey, you'd be a hell of a goalie. You take up the whole fucking goal, you know. There you go.
Goalie would be a shitty spot though, because you get pelted all the time like that. Like,
you got them triple thick gloves, man. You just
the fuck's that gonna do if somebody kicks that ball 100 miles an hour at you, and all you can do is try to hit that bitch out the way?
Hey, I played enough.
The only one that had any protection is hockey, man. Bro.
Reflexes. You just got to be quick.
Yeah, well, I want to see these reflexes that you say you got. But speaking of reflexes, man. Mitch, before we get into the fight for this week, man, talk to me about your road coming back to the cage, bro, because you had a couple setbacks with canceled bouts and injuries and all that kind of stuff. How are you feeling as you head into this fight? And talk to me about your road back to the cage.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it before we went live, but, you know, my wife had a baby in August, end of August last year, so it's just been, you know, a big change in my life and, you know, getting my routine and schedule down. I think, you know, I got injured before my January fight and had to pull out. And it's just, you know, there was a lot of things going on. And I feel like now I'm finally, you know, we got our routine down. We got everything back in order. And, you know, I've been training the whole time. It's just life gets a little hectic, you know, but, yeah, I'm feeling really good right now. I feel like I'm right where I need to be, and I feel like even though I didn't fight in January, I've still been just developing myself in the gym and getting better and getting my striking and my jiu-jitsu better, and so you'll definitely see a lot better version of myself this weekend.
I mean, as you see a lot of these top level guys say, man, a lot of the improvements done in between fights. So if you were able to delay them fights, like I was just saying with the soccer, man, it just gives you more time to improve, right?
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it sucked, and I didn't really want to have to pull out, but my coaches and management advised me to, and um, it's just but you just got to take it for what it is, and keep getting better and keep working, and like you said, I take my out of camp just as serious as in camp when I'm training, and I live down here in Florida. I got no job down here besides training, so I'm always training. Some guys, it's hard. I'm lucky that my wife has a pretty good job to afford me to do that, but sometimes guys, a lot of guys that are where I'm at in the regional scene, they have to go work nights, be bouncers and stuff like that, and you're just not able to train as much, and you're not able to get the recovery and sleep and everything you need to be at the your max capacity. So I'm very thankful and grateful that I'm able to just train every day.
Speaking of sleep, are you sleeping good after the new baby and all that? You getting enough
Yeah, that's
sleep?
another credit to my wife. She's taken all the overnights.
Yeah.
I haven't had to do any, and especially obviously the last couple months with being in fight camp. She's I don't know how she does it, to be honest, because she works 9 to 5 and takes care of the baby overnight. I just get the day shift in between practices, so it's not too bad for me. But yeah, I wake up here and there in the middle of the night, but she's usually got it under control. But
That's a whole job on top of a camp right there, dude, taking care of a baby. That
yeah,
that changes everything. So
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Dude, I can't say that I can concur on any of those things. I have my nephews that are giving me a little bit of a run for my money, but like we talked about, see, I get to ship them off once we're
Yeah.
done with this. So
Yeah,
my secret goal is just to get them hooked on wrestling or MMA or one of those, so it could be like the gift that keeps on giving to my sister.
like this one over
Yeah.
here. You just give them food and wrestling and stuff, and they just kind of go do their own thing. It's crazy.
I know.
I'm not gonna lie.
There's been like where I've stayed. I can't. It's hard for me to even to stay up and watch like UFC cards on the weekends sometimes, because I'm like, I gotta get, because the way we make it work is she gets overnight, and then I gotta get up at like 7 a.m., 6, 7 a.m. and get the morning before I leave for practice. But it sucks because like if I stay up and watch a UFC fight till 1,
Yeah.
she's still getting up at 6 or 7. There's no like, oh, now I can sleep in since I stayed up late. There's no sleeping in.
Yeah.
Right. Kids don't allow
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, they don't allow that.
I don't
I
envy
can't
that
ship
part
them
of it,
away.
man.
I can't ship them
Yeah.
away like Kyle.
You're right.
Hey, bro,
Hey,
I
wait.
take it where I can get it. All right.
Kyle, wait till
Yeah,
they start
uh-oh.
showing up at your house, though. Wait till they
Yeah.
start showing
Can't
up.
stay up early on cards. Aljo's fighting early for sure. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah,
But
Snooze Fest.
yeah, dude,
Wait,
like I
wait till
said,
they start showing up at your house, though, Kyle, on fight nights and wrestling weekends and stuff. Your nephew's gonna be knocking at your door.
like I
dude.
said, that's where the goal comes in. See, I'm gonna get them hooked on that shit. So then all I got to do is sit them down on the couch. We can sit there and watch whatever it is I'm watching. We'll still be good money. Don't you throw wrenches in my fucking plan before we get there. All right.
For you. It's gonna be fun for your sister too. She's like, go to Uncle Kyle's house. It's wrestling night. Go ahead.
Well, dude, my sister's already having a hell of a time with it because now my nephew, and now since he's warmed up to me, all he does is runs up to me and basically front flips into my lap and wants me to like power slam him and fucking choke slam his ass everywhere. I'm like, you're gonna be fucked when these kids want to start watching all this stuff.
Yeah.
But with all that said, man, like we were talking about, you talked to us about coming back from injury and all those things. You got another good opponent as you go to war this weekend. You guys have got pretty similar, if not. No, you have no losses and he's got 1. So your guys' records are pretty close. He's got 4-1 from what I can see here. Talk to me about coming back for this fight for LFA. What does it mean to you and what do you think about your opponent?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be in the main event again. In Sioux Falls, which is about 3 hours from my hometown. Tons of my family and friends are going to be there. Michael Blockus, who is also a University of Minnesota Gopher wrestler. He just finished up this year. He actually fought last August in a Bellator card in Sioux Falls, and then
I saw that.
now and then he went back to wrestling, and now he's back to MMA, but he's living down here, and him and I have known each other for probably 4 or 5 years, but we just got so close right away when he came to Minnesota, and he's like a brother to me now. And now that he's on this card with me, on the main card with me, it's pretty exciting. So yeah, just overall, I'm just really excited to get back in the cage and like I was saying earlier, just show what I've been working on the last 7-8 months and really put on a good performance. And my opponent, I know he's a good striker. He's his last fight, I believe, was against a wrestler too. So he knows how to fight against a wrestler. He's a good striker. He's southpaw. So obviously, I've been focusing on all that, and I think I'm up to the task, and I'm gonna go in there and just dominate and impose my will. But I'm like I said, I'm pretty much just excited to be back there. The last couple days I've been sitting around the house like doing my workouts, then watching the baby, and just like want to just get on that flight and get out there. I'm just waiting to get out there, and I'm just stoked.
So that's something in and of itself, man. That's another thing I was going to ask about since you brought up Minnesota. Your last couple fights, you've got to have them in your backyard in Minnesota. Now you're going to be fighting Sioux Falls. Talk to me about getting to have those main events in Minnesota. And is it any different for you now that you're not going to have that home field advantage, or is it just another day in the office?
I mean, I don't know if you know where Sioux Falls is. It's about 10 minutes from the Minnesota border.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know how far
I
didn't know how far they were. So
it's pretty close. So, I mean, I think I fought there twice. All my fights have either been in Minnesota or there, which it's 10 minutes from the border. So I've pretty much had the home field for everywhere I've went. But
that's awesome.
I really like this venue. It's the Minnesota one's more of a theater, so it's all the fans are all kind of on one side. This one's an actual like arena where it's got suites up top, and it surrounds the whole place, and it's a pretty cool venue, and it's really cool to fight in. And even just I've been, like I said, last August I went to the Bellator card there to corner Michael, and just being in that place, it's pretty exciting because when it gets packed, it gets loud. So I'm really excited to be there.
Yeah, Bellator ran a ton of cards out of there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and PFL is actually going there June 28th, I believe. Yeah.
Speaking of PFL, go ahead.
No, you're good. You go.
No, I was going to say, well, speaking of PFL, I know one of the guys that you've mentioned to us multiple times here on the show, one of your teammates, Logan Storley, just fought for them. What do you think now that PFL and Bellator are together? What do you think that looks like with that?
It's really interesting. I mean, I know they're running Bellator for like another year or two. And then I'm assuming they're doing that to just get logistics figured out for like how they're going to do the merger. Obviously maybe they just bought them this last year, and it's hard to just bring a whole roster over and get it all figured out in 6 months or whatever they had. So I'm sure they're going to run Bellator while in the meantime they're figuring out how to, because they don't have 135 in PFL right now. So, but they obviously do in Bellator. So I'm sure they're just trying to figure out how to add these new weights. Maybe I don't know if they're going to keep this tournament schedule just forever, but how are you going to logistically run the tournament for all these new weights you're adding along with all the weights you already have? You're going to have to find new venues, and they just finished up their series the last month or 3 weeks, and then they're not back again till June. So I'm assuming they're going to be running pretty much, they would be running in May all the way through June if they had to add all these weights. But it's very intriguing. I like the tournament style. It's kind of cool. It keeps you active. Like you're fighting for sure, getting 2 fights in 2-3 months, and then if you make the playoffs, 2 more. So it's really intriguing, and it's cool, and I think it's a great addition to our sport as far as like having something that's capable of getting big and drawing a lot of attention, and I think it's great for the sport.
So I'm a big fan of the tournament style too. Obviously, with Bellator being one of the first that did it back in the original days of Bellator. But with that being said, what do you think about some of the criticism that they're catching as far as like a lot of the higher end fighters, like Kayla Harrison said it when she came over to the UFC with the tournament layout like that? How much tougher it is for people to have to fight 3, 4, 5 times in a year. Do you think that that's going to like stop them with being able to get some of the bigger names because they don't want to fight that many times in a year?
So I think, it's hard because, it's hard because if you're fighting top level competition, it's kind of unrealistic to um, have a fight and then fight 2 months later sometimes because it's a fight and you could get leg kicked 27 times and you still can't walk a month and a half later
Right.
and you're supposed to fight, and so I definitely see how that is a problem. So yeah, I mean, I like the tournament. I just think, obviously they got to logistically figure it out to where they can keep this tournament style without killing their the
Momentum.
fighters,
Yeah.
or just killing the fighters as far as like
Mhm.
they're having to fight way too often against high level people and getting hurt, and then not, you're gonna run into a lot of problems if people are pulling out all the time because they're hurt. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is definitely tough to fight 4 times in like I think 8 months or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Well, what's
That's
the average
first.
like? What's the average like cut suspension? Is it like 60 to 90 days or something like that?
I think it's just like I want to say it's 2 weeks. If
Is
you
it 2
if you
weeks? Okay.
oh for a cut,
For a cut, yeah, yeah,
if you get like cut,
yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, I'm sure it's probably 60, yeah,
60 something like
60 or
that.
90.
I mean, even
Yeah.
that, you
That's
take
what
2 months of think of a big good cut right on your brow, man. 2 months, you're getting back into camp. I mean,
I mean, that's not even the worst of it. Like a cut's not that bad. It's more like things um, like I said, like if you get like calf kicked like 20 times, your
mhm,
calf swells up, and then that just you can't walk on it for like a
Yeah.
month, and then somehow you're supposed to get back into camp when you still can't walk on it. I think those type of things are what
yeah,
like cuts aren't that bad because they just heal up on their own, and you can still kind of train, but when your
sure.
calf's beat up, you can't really train.
Pulled muscles, sore
Uh,
muscles
Yes,
like
yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
got to be
That's.
hard.
I think that's part of the reason why, going back to your point, Kyle, why the acquisition of Bellator was such a big thing for PFL is because of, like you said, it is hard to maintain that schedule and to be one of these guys that's just repeating in this tournament style year after year, whether you make the playoffs or not. That's a very tough ask. So if I'm in the PFL chair, I think it's smart to keep Bellator around, continue to keep their champions active, continue to be able to build cards and build stars and stuff like that throughout, the undercards and the main cards of those events, while also being able to then kind of rotate the guys that you need to in and out of the tournaments throughout the years. Like I'm sure we're going to see another 3 different guys come into next year's tournament and
Mhm.
another 3 or 4 in each weight class. And if you're able to do that and keep the roster going while doing the Bellator events and then keep the PFL thing fresh by bringing in the new guys, but then not necessarily burning the guys that are not doing the season anymore on the way out because you still have the Bellator option. So I feel like it really it helps with what they're trying to do with the whole season and tournament and stuff like that. I feel like it gives them that secondary option of like, okay, well, we can still bring in, like you said, these top level guys and gals, and now we don't necessarily have to worry about are they going to be happy to do a season format under a 3-year contract or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah, and I mean, what they could do also is just add regular events too that
Yeah.
aren't just tournament. Like you could opt out of the tournament, but then fight. Say you only want to fight twice, 3 times this year, not 4 in a tournament. You could just do a regular fight with someone. You know what I mean? Um, which they kind of do with that whole Challenger series, but that's just The Challenger Series is to get into the tournament. So I mean, you could have regular fights too, and just build those up, just good matchups, that you can build and promote along with the tournament. So in case you don't want to go back-to-back years in a tournament, you could take a year off from the tournament and just do a couple regular fights and then get back in the tournament that third year.
Sounds
Plus,
complicated to
one-
me.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
it is.
I don't know
it
how
is,
they're going to
but
do it, to be honest, but it'll
Well,
be interesting.
that was part of my issue to begin with. And like you had mentioned, like they had just wrapped up their kind of initial
Round one. Or whatever.
season
Yeah.
opening fights or whatever, however you want to word that. And for them to now kind of, in my eyes at least, lose momentum because they're going to be off of fights for 2 to 3 months now while they're on that in between time. That's where I feel like you were saying, whether they're branded PFL, whether they're branded Bellator, that's where they need to do a better job of starting to fill that void of keeping it in the MMA media's and fans' minds of, hey, this is what, we still are putting on shows. We still got entertainment value over here,
Yeah, plus their season runs, I think, April to November, and then they're off December, January, February, March. So it's like you lose everyone in the whole winter season. Like they have a lot of gaps, which I think would be easy to fill with, like I said, just doing some regular cards with people who aren't in the tournament, Because I mean, realistically, this year I think they're doing it usually they only have like 8 guys that are trying to make the top 4 to go to the playoffs, and most of the weights this year there's like 12 guys. So there's some guys, if you go 2-0 with only 2 decisions, you're not even going to make the tournament.
Wow.
So maybe you keep that at 8, and you have all these other guys that just do regular fights, and then maybe you rank them to see who jumps in to the tournament next year or whatever. But you definitely got to fill that void, because they do, like, in the month that they have their fights going on, you see them all over social media. They do a great job of promoting. They put on some great cards, but then you lose them for like 2 months until they're back again.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they definitely
They just need to figure out some logistics. I vote knockouts and 3 counts takes the chair, but that's just I'm probably
I like
perfect.
that idea.
Perfect.
I like that idea. And it's funny though. My big concern on the PFL thing, and I mean, not that it's a bad thing, because obviously anybody that follows the show knows that we rock with Bellator because a bunch of the homies all fight for them. But with that being said, my whole thought with the acquisition of PFL or for Bellator for PFL is, it's like, from what we saw, even from that Champions card that they had, for the most part, Bellator is basically running shop on most of the talent that's over there in PFL. So I feel like in a lot of ways, whether PFL wants to or not, in a lot of ways they could look just like Bellator soon, with the fact that a lot of the Bellator champions won, other than Henan Ferreira. And, out of, like, Corey and I have talked about this a few times, like, out of that first line of people that they got there to PFL, like Anthony Pettis and Verdum and Rory McDonald and all them, they're all already gone. So, like, I'm just hoping that whether it be through the tournament layout or from the integration of, like, people from Bellator, I just hope that they're able to differentiate itself, because I feel like if you're PFL, that would have to suck if people just start looking at PFL as Bellator when you guys are the ones that bought them. But I feel like that's something we could see a lot of too, because it seems like Bellator's roster was so much deeper.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely pretty much cleaned up shop at that super fights. But I mean, I think there's a lot of talented guys no matter where you go. And I think some people forget that a lot of the guys in Bellator would beat a lot of the UFC guys. But
that's a fact.
It's just that UFC does a better job of promoting, so then people think that UFC's just better. Like, all their fighters are better. But that's not always the case. I mean, obviously there's, just like we saw in the PFL Bellator card, like, some are better, some aren't, but, like, for the most part, like, all the big organizations, there's studs all over. So it's just UFC does a better job of promoting, and that's why they're the biggest promotion because they spend so much money in their promoting.
So with that being said, man, we've talked about this on the show a couple times. I mean, obviously you're 5-0 at this point. You've got another tough opponent here. If everything goes your way this Friday, I mean, what are your thoughts on the landscape of MMA, and should everything go your way at this fight at LFA, where would you want to end up? Do you want to go to the UFC? Is PFL one of those that's an option? Do you like one championship, or is it just whoever gives you the best contract?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting interesting now with, like I said, with PFL, and I don't know if I do one championship. That's a little far for me, especially starting a family. But yeah, I mean, my options are open, but for me, I've always seen myself as going to the UFC. But at the end of the day, I value food in my family's mouth over popularity. So whatever's the best for my family, and that's kind of what I'm going to go with. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything, but ultimately I see myself in the UFC, and that's kind of been my dream and my goal. So, but goals change, and whatever's out there for me that's the best for me and my future, then that's what I'm gonna go with.
Feel that. Well, obviously I got to ask you about some of the fights that we've just seen go through here, but before I get to that, I got to tell you about our other sponsors from Mitten Muay Thai. As you can see, hard-hitting action, knees, elbows, kicks, anything you could want to see from the world of kickboxing. Check out Mitten Muay Thai May 3rd. They're putting me on a microphone. If you're in Michigan or around Clinton Township, get you a ticket at the link in the bio. All right.
I love that ad, by the way. I know I say it every time. That ad
it's a
is
lot funner to look at than some of the other ones we've had.
Literally kick ass.
They made a good one.
I dig that ad.
This is going to be interesting. From what they say, I guess I'm supposed to be on commentary with a comedian too. So with my smart ass mouth and a comedian, this could be like some Chisel Adonis type fucking commentary in this bitch. I don't know what that's going to look like.
That'll be interesting.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. Past guest of the show, Reese Kelly, is stepping back in there into the ring. Hopefully this time they can get the amount of time for the rounds right, because that was one of the most wild fucking things I've ever seen in a fight. It was a pro fight, and they stopped around 2 minutes or 3 minutes in when Reese has got full mount on this dude hitting him, and they stood him up at the end of the round, and there were still supposed to be 3 minutes left. So hopefully we can get the right times for this one.
Yeah.
Who's at fault for that? Who's fucking?
I don't know. Well, dude, that whole thing was nuts.
I would assume there was a job opening right after that event.
I mean, I didn't recognize it at first when we were at the fights, but dude, when he came back and he put the video of the round in question on Facebook, and you can see it was only I don't remember if it was 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but he's got full mount, back mount punching the guy, and he's got to stop the round because somebody fucked up the clock, man.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Hopefully he gets that fight turned over. That's all I'm gonna say, because that's a hell of a way. Because he ended up losing that fight later on in the fight, but they screwed him on them rounds. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But with that being said, man, we've had quite a bunch of fucking fights the last weekend. I know you watch all the UFC, so you got to give me your thoughts. What'd you think of UFC 300, my man?
Man, it was good. It was really good. There was the whole card top to bottom was stacked. I mean, everyone was kind of hating on it going into it, and then it turned out to Dana was just licking his chops as each fight was going on, getting back at the media for saying that it wasn't going to be that special, and then what it turned out to be was pretty amazing. Like I said, it gets late here. I mean, same time there, but I was kind of dozing off the Fajeda fight. I was a little dozing off, and then my wife was like, "Whoa!" and I woke up to him knocking him out. But it's obviously you can tell it was an amazing card because you're still seeing stuff all over social media. I mean, the cup check has been I've seen that 8,000 times. Him rushing off.
That was ridiculous.
I don't know. Every time I open my Instagram, I think that video pops up.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, that one kind of hurt us in our soul.
Dude. I mean, didn't they say that was the most what was it, social media views
Had to have
thing,
been.
whatever, something like that, right? And
I've
and
seen that
their whole
so much over the last week.
yeah,
It's been
like the
unbelievable.
most viewed video on their social media or something now.
So like that was a double-edged sword one for me though, because Corey and I were calling fights for our guys' Lights Out Championship. Shout out to them out there in Muskegon. So they had the prelims up on the screens while we were doing the fights. And dude, the thing with that's crazy though is I've been saying it on this show for a while that Pereira is just different, bro. There's no way to put it. Like that guy's striking is nasty. What he's been able to do in 12 fights in the UFC and all the world championship champions he's beat, winning 2 titles already. I mean, there's not a lot more you can say. But I'm not gonna lie, with Jamal being a past guest of this show and a Michigan boy, dude, that was tough to watch. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Dude, wait, not only that, right? You got to factor. There was so many factors going on. We had just got done calling the fights for the organization that he had built, like
right. That was the
his foothold
organization
in
he
his
came
career.
up in too.
We were on the other side of the state that he calls home. Not only the side of the state that he calls home, we were literally driving through his now hometown while the fight was taking place, watched everything take place. We still had a 2.5+ hour drive home that from then basically remained silent because it wasn't, the mood had slightly changed from watching the Max Holloway fight to then watching somebody I had a huge amount of respect for, still do. But what amazes me the most in all of this, I mean, like the event was crazy and stuff like that, but for Jamal to already put himself back in a title contention
and a tough ass fight too against Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, that's. I mean, stepping back into the
When
fire.
is that?
Right?
When is that supposed to be? June 29th?
June. Yep.
At 30 whatever. 303 or 302 or whatever.
It's like June. I want to say that's the date it was, but it's like
the end of June. The Chandler McGregor card.
Speaking of which, any of you guys that are new here, we got to chat with Michael Chandler about his new tequila and that fight and all that stuff as well. So make sure you go check that out after you're done with this one. But another fight I wanted to get your thoughts on, with you being the wrestling guy. What'd you think on the debut of Kayla Harrison in the UFC?
Well, I mean, that was pretty dominant. I honestly, I thought it was going to be a little closer fight than it ended up being, but she just dominated from start to finish. I mean, that's another thing is like the PFL, you can't elbow and stuff. So that's like
she dropped a lot of them on Polly's dome.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone the other day of like after watching the last 3 weeks of the PFL fights, like guys, it really hinders grapplers, it's offensive grapplers that are on top trying to ground and pound, because it's so hard from some of these. Like if you get full mount, it's way harder to punch from full mount than it is to drop elbows.
Yep.
And or any position really on top. And so it really hurts guys and girls in PFL that can't elbow. And you saw her add that back into her fight,
repertoire,
the UFC fight, and it was just a huge difference. And to do that against a former champion is even crazier.
Did she have like?
Here's a question: should that fight have been on the main card over Bo Nickel, though?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the UFC, like I said, it's all about promoting and it's all about the biggest names. And Bo Nickel is a big draw from the wrestling community. You know what I mean? So I'm sure Dana sees Bo Nickel as a way to get into the wrestling market more. And because I don't know if you guys know, like amateur wrestling, like not a lot of them. I mean, recently they've started to, but not all of them really follow MMA that much, because you're just so into wrestling that you don't even pay attention to MMA at all. So I think he's maybe sees Bo as like a way to like tap that market a little bit more and get more amateur wrestling fans to start watching MMA and following it. And you've seen it too with more wrestlers getting into MMA. It's just now I think it's a whole new market for them to get into, and I think that's what he sees by putting Bo Nickel on the main card.
To that point,
Who-
you've seen him also add quite a bit of the events on Fight Pass and stuff now too. They're definitely trying to tap into that market for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they had some college wrestling duels on Fight Pass, I believe.
That's what, yeah.
This
They
year.
did. I
saying.
was going to ask
Yeah.
you about that with all the names that we've been seeing retiring from the world of collegiate wrestling and all that stuff. Would you got any thoughts on all the wrestling we've been seeing lately, man? I know you're watching.
Oh
it.
yeah, the Olympic trials was this last weekend. Yeah, Jaden Cox retired. Mark Hall retired. I don't know what Jordan Burroughs is going to do, but or David Taylor, but yeah, it's kind of, it seems like it's a little bit of a passing of the torch right now.
That's what it felt like to me. That's why I wondered what you thought with you being a wrestling guy, just with all these names going out, whether it be just because they're done wrestling or whatever the case. I mean, it just seems like we had a lot of notable names all kind of just go all out at once.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it happens, you know. It's just the way of the sport, especially wrestling. It's so hard on your body. I mean, MMA is about 18 times easier on your body than wrestling. I mean, after I got done with college wrestling, I after the 2021 Olympic trials, I was like, I don't know if I can wrestle until this year's trials, which was last weekend. That's what I was kind of debating. Do I get a real job? Do I keep wrestling? And I was like, I don't know if my body can handle 3 more years of wrestling. But MMA is just so much easier on your body. But so it's, I mean, for those guys to even wrestle into their 30s is absurd to me. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Brooks from Penn State beat David Taylor, the reigning Olympic champion, for our world team, or for our Olympic team spot, which Aaron Brooks is just a freaking beast. I mean, I think he's got a great chance at going to win the Olympics this summer. So, and then you got Spencer Lee beating Thomas Gilman. And he's got to, in 3 weeks, he's got to go qualify the weight for 57 kilos. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of young guys or guys who are just getting out of college that are starting to make those teams, which, you know, those guys, the guys who we're talking about that are retiring, they all did that too when they were, that's what the legacy, that's the reason they've built their legacy, is because when they got out of college, they started making these world and Olympic teams, and then they kept the torch for however many years, and now it's the young guys' turns to take it over. So it happens in every sport.
Hell, it even happens in pro wrestling too, man.
Yeah. Yep.
So with all that being said, man, we talked a little bit about UFC 300. We talked about, and again, I love Max Holloway, but it hurt my soul to watch Gaethje get beat up like that too. But I ain't gonna lie, that was one of the most epic ways to knock somebody out, with there only being like 10 seconds of the round. He points down and just uncorks the
1 second
and just sends them flat.
Yeah,
dude.
that, I think the biggest thing in that fight was that kick right at the end of the first round changed everything.
Oh yeah, the one that hit him right in the nose.
Yep.
Right
That
in the
kick,
nose,
I
yep.
mean, that kick happened with like 1 or 2 seconds left in the first round.
Yep.
And it just broke his nose. And then he couldn't breathe the next two. He couldn't really do anything the next 2 rounds, Gaethje. But I mean, Max's boxing technique is, I mean, he just showed in that fight that it doesn't really matter. I mean, to a degree it does, your weight class. It matters on your skill. You know what I mean? Just as Mighty Mouse showed submitting that giant dude in that jiu-jitsu tournament a couple weeks ago. It's like a lot of mixed martial arts has to do with your skill level and your technique, and not as much like your size and I mean, power obviously helps, but you got to have skill behind that power.
Right. Well, that's as good a way as any to ask your thoughts on some of these things from the boxing world, whether it be legit boxing or what we've seen with Jake Paul and them, man. Did you get to see Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney last weekend?
I saw the highlights. I didn't see the fight, but I can't. That's crazy.
I'm shocked because I'm not gonna hold you up. I have to say this here on the show. I gotta give props where it's due to Ryan Garcia, because I was saying going into this fight, like, my man doesn't look like he's he's all there ready to go, and then he shows up and misses 3 pounds of weight and is drinking a beer at the weigh-in and all this shit. I'm like, man, this guy's about to get smoked. And then he goes in there and drops a guy who's never been dropped before, drops him not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then to cap it all off, so you had them going back and forth with the bet where Ryan was supposed to pay him $500,000 for every pound that he missed or whatever. And then you find out that he's making $60 million and bet $2 million on himself and won on that too. So everything is coming up King Ryan right now, dude. But I still don't know how the hell he managed to do that.
I've been seeing some stuff the last couple days that he was acting crazy to help with the promoting of the fight.
He was definitely acting crazy. I'll tell you that. I don't know.
That he purposely was trying to act like he was insane, so then people would. So then he. Well, this is getting crazy conspiracy theory type deal, but like he was acting crazy so that his line would move, so that he could bet as himself as an underdog, because everyone thought there's no way he could win.
And that's exactly what I thought, which is why, especially with what happened with James Krause in the UFC, how the fuck he was able to do that. Like, you're influencing the line because you're acting all crazy. I understand you're betting on yourself, but you probably helped those odds go up for you to win anyway.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. So what's the legalities on this? Is that the word, legalities?
I mean,
we'll call it an offshore book.
I know in boxing, as long as you're just betting on yourself, it's good. I know UFC says the Krause thing, you can't bet on anything at all, but but I know in boxing, I'm pretty sure you can bet on yourself.
See, and that's what's so wild to me is that it was like that. Although another guest of ours, Justin James, bet his whole purse on himself to win too. So I don't know. I wonder if it's got to do with the state or if it's maybe like
I didn't think it was different at all.
The Justin James thing though, that was before the whole Krause thing.
Yeah, that was before they changed it. Well, then I stick with what I said.
It was even such a thing that I remembered they were talking about it on the his whole before fight interview was, did you really put your money on the fight? He's like, fuck yeah, I did. What do you mean?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really unfortunate that the whole Krause thing, because I mean, if you want to bet on yourself, you should be able to bet on yourself. You know what I mean? At least yourself winning.
As long as you're betting to
losing,
win.
That's different. But if you want to bet on yourself to win, double down on yourself, that should be illegal. But I see where it's muddy because now it's if you bet on your own teammate losing or that type of stuff is where I think they see that the reason it's just such a muddy and gray area that they're just we're not doing this at all.
I'll tell you what, I love gambling on UFC and all that shit, but it does change the way that I watch combat sports. Bar none. There's guys that I'm like, oh, dude, I love watching this guy fight, but look at this. I hope he loses today. Fuck, I love that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
That's why, as a fan myself, that's why I say it all the time. Anytime any bets get brought up, why don't you bet on the fight? That exact reason. I explain that exact reason. I've watched.
It's too much emotion involved.
Here's a good reason right here. I'll tell you this. I don't think I've talked about this yet, but I did place a bet on Max Holloway to win that fight by decision.
Nice. Oh.
That was I was that guy. I was that guy. So when it happened, I'm like, oh, shit, right. No. I was like, look at what? No, where's the clock? Where's the clock?
That sucks. That sucks.
You should have been listening to Drop Zone, bro.
I seen someone online bet had a big ass parlay or maybe a 3 or 4 part parlay, and the last one was Max Holloway to get a finish in the 5th.
Oh,
and it was $80 for hundreds of thousands, 450,000 or something.
That's what the fuck I need to come up on, man. I need to hit me
listen. I see it. I follow this. There's Kyle have to shoot it to. There's a handle on Twitter that just shows these big bets and these outrageous bets. It's if you go to work the time I do at 4:30 in the morning, you'll see the across the pond bets, the UK and the tennis matches, and these guys are putting thousands on, a person I can't even pronounce their name to win mega bucks, dude. And sometimes they do, and it's pretty ridiculous. I try to tell them on
the problem
football,
is you only see the winners.
That's it. You only see
So
what
like
they
those
win.
big $80 to win 450,000.
Yeah, well, these guys are
That's like
putting like 15 grand.
one
You
in
know,
10,000 people.
yeah, this guy's like, oh, I bet 15 grand to win 21 grand. I'm like, so
How many times?
But you could have lost $15,000.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
How many times did you lose that 15 grand? That's the real question.
exactly.
Are
you
you
down
could have.
that
It's how many
bad right
times did
now?
you?
Is that why you're in the UK right now betting?
It's like
They post-
hardball.
They post their
Yeah,
winners,
dude.
but they don't always post their losers.
Exactly.
It's interesting, bro, because you see all that stuff. Like I said, we just had our guy Drop Zone on, who was always throwing out all the bets and all that stuff, and it's like I've always been a guy who was of the ilk. Like I like to bet on the fights, but I don't ever bet anything that if I lose it, that I'm gonna be like hurting like that. I'll split it across a few bets, man. But it's it definitely can change the way fights go. But speaking of that, dude,
I got one quick question before you jump topics. Since we are on the betting topic, and LFA has betting as well, but I mean, you're knocking at the door, like you said, to the major organizations and stuff. Is that something that even crosses your mind? Is like, do I look at the betting lines? What is Vegas thinking about me? Or does that stuff cross your mind? Do you even think about the odds and the like, oh, I gotta perform in this certain way because they don't think I'm going to, or something along those lines?
No, not really. I mean, maybe for like a half second, but not. I mean, once you like start walking out to the cage, it doesn't really. None of that stuff crosses your mind. I mean, the one time someone told me they put like $2,000 on me on my first fight to win like $200, and they told me this, and it made me go
Before the fight?
Yeah.
Oh no! Fuck!
It was my first fight.
Way to put some pressure on me, guy.
Yeah, this person told me that they put $2,000 on me to win 200, and I'm like, dude, now if I lose, I'm gonna feel like responsible for you losing.
You don't ever say that until the fight's over.
Right,
Yeah, I know. It's like, dude, that's the worst thing you could do to a fighter is tell them how much you bet on them before the fight. But no, I mean, I don't really pay attention to it too much. I mean, you see it every weekend, like guys who are plus 180 win, guys who are minus 400 lose. It's like it's a sport. It's like different styles, different matchups, anything, especially MMA. Anything can happen with one punch. So it's like I don't really pay attention to that stuff too much.
All right, so since we're talking about betting and fights, I have two more fights that I got to ask you about. One of them, we'll go with the MMA one first, since we talked about Chandler and McGregor. Now that that's been announced, man, I know you're a Chandler guy. So do you think Chandler can get the job done against Conor McGregor?
I do if he uses his wrestling.
This is literally what I said when we talked about this fucking fight.
Everybody's on the same page with this one.
Yeah, he doesn't like to, but I mean, he's also he's a tough dude though, so I mean, it's gonna be, whether he uses his wrestling or not, I think it's gonna be an amazing fight. And both those guys, it's gonna either both of them, or it's like one punch could take the other one out. So
Derek coming in hot. He said you're saying Conor's wrestling isn't good enough, or Chandler's wrestling isn't good enough? Because I would argue
to be fair, Chandler has some pretty wicked knockouts too.
If Chandler uses his wrestling,
no, I hear what I'm saying. The guy in the comments said, "Nah, his wrestling isn't good enough." I'm like, who are we talking about? Because Chandler's wrestling is definitely better than Conor.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch, I mean, people don't know because.
Ooh, shit! He's talking about Chandler. Okay.
Well, people don't know because people have really only watched Chandler in the UFC, and he's only been a striker. But if you go watch his Bellator fights, he used to take people down and ground and pound them and wrestle them before he became a UFC guy. So I mean, that Dan Hooker, I think, knockout changed everything for him.
Yeah.
Then he's like, oh shit, I'm a striker now. So
it opened his eyes for sure.
Yeah,
especially once the highlight became as big as it did, it showed him like that ability to rise to the top quickly with a highlight reel finish, and
getting a title fight right after that.
Yeah, not to interrupt your point, but another thing that we might not see him implement his wrestling as much, like his traditional single legs, double legs, and stuff like that. We still see him getting his slams damn near every fight, though. He just needs to work on getting people controlled from that position instead of,
Yeah, he's a little bit of a wild man, and I think people in the gym have been saying that I'm kind of the same way, where I'm a little bit too wild sometimes. So they've been trying to tell me to like, you got to hone it in a little bit, sometimes it's a great quality to have, to be that
right.
like you get hit and I'm going to hit you harder type of like recklessness a little bit, like where you're going and you're swinging. But the problem is you get yourself in trouble, or like with the Gaethje fight, like if he would have just finished that double leg like normal, he could have potentially won the fight, because it was like I think it was probably like a round 1-1 rounds wise, and he could have won the third round and won the fight, but instead he did a giant slam with the double leg and Gaethje rolled through, and you know what I mean? So it's like finishing the double leg a little, just dump him to the side instead of picking him up and slamming him. But I mean, that Aljamain Sterling body slam was pretty dope last week.
Yeah.
So
I'm just glad that he looked okay when
he.
he went up in weight, because a lot of times when people move up in weight like that, I always wonder how it's going to look. Obviously, it wasn't like the most impressive performance that he's ever had, but it's a good win for him to get on his way in. It's funny because, to Derek's point in the comments, I said that as soon as I heard this matchup, like if Chandler fights the way that he can fight using his wrestling and stuff, he should beat Conor. But I also feel like they put this fight together because they know, like you just said, that Chandler is not too hard to be bribed into a fist fight. So, and against a guy like Conor, that's exactly what he wants, is somebody who's going to come trying to chase him down so he can catch him with a counter shot. But then, to play devil's advocate, you also got to look at how well is Conor's timing really going to be able to be, being that he's been out so long with injury, and even before that, it wasn't even like he was fighting as regularly as he was. So like I said, I want to say Chandler, man, but this matchup just scares me for him. So I figured you were going to go Chandler, but I had to get your thoughts on that one. We also got to talk about, because everybody and their mom keeps asking me about this fight. What are your thoughts on this whole Mike Tyson, Jake Paul thing, bro?
Money grab. That's what I think. I mean, it is. I think I read the rules or whatever it was, where they went to 16-ounce gloves and what was it, 2-minute rounds instead of 3 or something like that. I think it favors Tyson. So for Paul, it's kind of a disadvantage, because if you think about it, Tyson's probably got a little bit more punching power. So I mean, it probably,
I'd say so.
yeah. But his endurance is probably way less than
damn,
Jake
Derek
Paul.
is coming in hot. He says,
I love it.
No, I mean, I think it favors Jake Paul just because, or it favors Tyson, sorry, just because what was I saying? No, it favors
the timing in the round definitely does.
Is actually going to help Tyson out, because he won't have to go as long.
Yes, yeah. It just, I mean, I've been watching the videos that Tyson's been posting, like him training and him doing the pads, like do. But I'm like, how long can you do that at your age? You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between posting a 7-second clip of you hitting pads like hard and fast, but that and like being able to do that for like 20-30 minutes is a big difference. So I mean, if Jake can just outlast him for a round or two, I'm sure he can get him kind of tired. But Jake's looked tired a couple times in his fights too, so we'll see. But I definitely think
like
it's a money grab for sure.
Big
But
money.
I mean,
it's
Netflix
gonna
is
be
the one that's
entertaining.
winning out of this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Is it gonna be free on there, right?
So if anybody who has a Netflix subscription will be able to watch it for free,
yeah,
which is why I said Netflix is most definitely going to make a shit ton of money,
pay.
because of all the subscriptions they're going to get just for people to watch this.
Yeah, that, or I mean, Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much they're getting paid by Netflix. That's a crazy deal.
And he's got Amanda Serrano on the undercard or on the co-main too.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. I remember actually
So
me and my wife and I we watched the first Netflix. They did that tennis match between Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz. It was like a live stream little tennis match on Netflix. So it was
okay.
actually kind of a cool little event. So I'm sure this boxing card will be something similar, but it's interesting. I mean, Netflix definitely. I don't know how they spend all this money on making all these movies
I
and
don't
stuff.
either.
I have no idea how.
Because they keep raising the price of damn Netflix, bro.
Yeah,
My
yeah, you're
damn
right.
subscription's gone
I
up. I don't know about how many times. And then think about this. I got to give Jake Paul credit because he'll say that it's not true. But, I mean, I think he's taking a page out of his brother's book because if you look at it, WWE's are also going to Netflix. Monday Night Raw is going to Netflix as well.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden we're doing this fight on Netflix. I think it's another time where I feel like pro wrestling is influencing some shit.
Do you think eventually they'll do like pay-per-views on Netflix?
Well,
Like
yeah, they're
ESPN
they're
Plus?
going to. I think
hope
what'll
they-
end up
I hope-
happening is
No, I hope that they continue with the paid. You're a paid subscriber.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
we'll see.
I hope that too.
we'll
But I'm just
see.
saying, eventually,
he's talking
maybe
like. Are you talking
they're doing
WWE or UFC? You think?
No, I'm just saying for these events they're putting on there, like maybe they're just testing out these live streams right now, just to know that they can do it, and then eventually they're gonna do like pay-per-view like sporting events. Like maybe they want to get into like the sports streaming world and kind of like ESPN Plus or Peacock or whatever.
Well, I think that's exactly what they're trying to do because from what I understand now, it hasn't been confirmed or anything, but from what I understand with them taking over Monday Night Raw, like the WWE Network used to be the way that you could still watch everything if you were in like the UK and all that stuff. But to my understanding, they've already changed that to where if you're in like the UK or any of the other countries like that, to watch like the premium live events, it's all on Netflix already. So if I had to guess, I think what's going to end up happening is because here's the other thing that made that deal with WWE so interesting to me is that when they signed with Peacock, they got 1.4 billion or something like that just for Raw to go to Netflix. They got paid 5 billion.
Oh wow!
So I think once that Peacock contract is up, they damn sure are going to go over to Netflix because WrestleMania, ring the bell, get you a shirt if you haven't already done that yet. But WrestleMania, they said that was the most streamed event ever to the point where they got like 1.3 billion streams on there.
Wow.
I think, yeah, that's why I say, I think like we've talked about before, I think the whole streaming thing is definitely going to be the way that happens. Hate him or love him, Paul. I can't argue that. And Derek, to your point, I'm not trying to argue that at all. I may not like the fact that he's fighting, not fighting fighters that are, around his age or in their prime. But no, they're definitely good for boxing and it brought more eyes back on it. And I've said it before. Logan Paul, the best move he could have made was going to WWE because I've been in a lot of those matches and he's killed it. I think if WWE had half of a brain, they're going to bring Jake Paul in once all this shit blows over itself. So I'm with you 100%. I definitely think that's going to be the route we end up going. But
yeah,
we'll
I mean,
see.
they're both amazing promoters of themselves and entertainers. So WWE is like perfect for them.
And they've already dipped their toes in the water with it.
Yeah, I know. And Logan, I mean, plus they're athletic, and like you can't just be a good, someone who can just talk. You also got to be able to perform.
You got to back it up.
So I mean, Logan showed that he's got some good skills when it comes to WWE, and he's good on the mic too, and good personality. So I think both of them could definitely be in WWE. I mean, depending on what Jake wants to do, I guess. I mean, I don't even know what he's trying to do. If he's trying to be,
I think he's just going where the money's at right now. But I think at some point, I definitely think that that's the move because they already brought them out together at Saudi. And to your point with Logan, I mean, the stuff that guy's been able to do for the short amount of time that he's done that shows what kind of athlete he is. And then you want to talk about business minds. You can't say anything bad about him. Business mind. The guy managed to get Prime on the mat on WrestleMania. We just said
seriously.
that it was $1.3 billion or 1.3 billion streams, and everybody saw Prime on the corner, Prime on the mat. Prime,
and it's in every like grocery store now, pretty much.
Right. That's why I'm saying, I mean,
Yeah.
look, I may not like all the fights that Jake's taken necessarily, but you can't sit there and say that they haven't changed the game on things. But speaking of changing the game on things, the last two couple things I got to talk about before we get out of here. It was announced today that NXT Battleground is going to be held at the UFC Apex. This is going to be interesting in and of itself. I didn't think we'd see events ran in the Apex, but J-Bone, what do you think about them running over there in Apex like that? I think it's going to be like, I envision it kind of like a performance center on crack, kind of. But yeah, I feel like I like the crossover.
Honestly, I like the idea, but I'm feeling like it's going to be like the Thunderdome thing. You know what I mean? Like,
oh God, no.
Smaller feel. It's just going to, like, how many people can legit fit in the Apex? I mean, does anybody know?
Not that many.
I don't know what the capacity is.
Maybe a couple hundred seat wise.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't
it's
know.
not
it
much.
Can't be much. So with production and everything, and you know how big WWE does it, they're probably going to make it look really cool. I would assume, but I like the idea of that. I'm really confused on how they're going to pull it off because you're going smaller in all aspects there. So
yeah,
I don't know, but if anybody can pull it off, it's damn sure WWE. So I'm with it.
Yeah, they are masters of production.
Yeah. So
It's
I'm sure they'll make something cool out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited to see how that plays out. I just thought that was cool because it's like the first crossover we've really gotten to see really between the UFC and WWE since the merger and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. I can't wait to see that. Also, I got to give a shout out to the Unbreakable Bunch. We just did the movie premiere for them Saturday night. I got to interview King Haku, which will be coming up. The interview we dropped today with Glacier from WCW, and then we've also got one with Ernest the Cab Miller coming up. So if you get that comes to a city near you, that'll be interesting. I'll tell you, man, I've never done a movie premiere, but it was it was something else, man, because there's all these people walking up to the table and shit, and they got all the posters. Speaking of which, here you go. Shout out to the Unbreakable Bunch. I still got the joint next to me with all the Living Legend and all them signatures and shit on it in the studio. Maybe I'll give one of those away on our social media. But definitely wanted to give a shout out to them for that. Make sure you stay tuned for those interviews. But Mitch, we've kept you for quite a while, bro. So I'll leave you the floor is yours. Let everybody know why they need to check out LFA on Friday. And any last words you got for your opponent?
Yeah, I mean, definitely go on UFC Fight Pass this Friday. I think the main card starts at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, I feel like all my fights are pretty entertaining, and I'm always looking to put on a good show. And I know this one will be a good show. He's a stand-up. He's a striker. I'm a wrestler, but my last fight was all on the feet, so it's going to be a war, and it's going to be a good fight, and there's a lot of great fights. Before that, we got 3 other guys from Killcliff on the main card, so there's 4 of us on the main card out of 5. So we're just rolling in there with Killcliff and ready to dominate in Sioux Falls. So definitely go to UFC Fight Pass and check out LFA 182 on Friday night, but I'll be there to put on a show.
You heard the man. Don't miss it. You're going to need to see what's going on this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be one hell of a way to spend a Friday. And then Saturday, if you're in the Michigan area, you got to come check out Big John's MMA. I will be there on the call. Shout out to Big John and everybody. Going to see some fights. They're letting my ass loose in a casino. We're going to have to see what happens with that. But like I said, it's going to be one hell of a week. I'm still on a hangover from WrestleMania, but make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We've got the other interviews from the Unbreakable Bunch going to drop this Tuesday. We'll be joined by your BKFC Women's Champion, Christine Faria, before she goes back in to defend her belt. So, like I said, you never know who's going to be on the other end of this thing. Make sure you get UFC Fight Pass. Check out LFA this Friday. Until next time, in the in-between time, enjoy the draft. Let's go Lions.
Go, baby.
Skol!